She was a very nice lady at first. She asked me about my family. She seemed to care." These words came from a woman identified only as Jane, testifying in federal court in New York during the winter of 2021. She described her first meeting with Ghislaine Maxwell at the Interlochen Arts Camp in Michigan, where Jane was 14 years old. The woman who appeared kind and interested would later, according to Jane's testimony, participate in her sexual abuse alongside Jeffrey Epstein. In our last episode, we traced Epstein's biography from his Brooklyn childhood through his rise in Manhattan's financial circles. Today, the woman without whom his criminal enterprise could not have existed. Ghislaine Noël Marion Maxwell was born on December 25, 1961, in Maison Lafitte, France. Her father, Robert Maxwell, born Jan Ludwig Hyman Benjamin Hof in Czechoslovakia, built a British media empire that included the Daily Mirror newspaper. Her mother, Elizabeth Maynard, came from French Protestant aristocracy. Ghislaine was the youngest of 9 children in a family defined by wealth, influence, and her father's domineering presence. Robert Maxwell drowned under mysterious circumstances in 1991 after falling from his yacht, the Lady Ghislaine, near the Canary Islands. British and Spanish authorities ruled the death accidental, though questions persisted. Following his demise, investigators discovered he had stolen hundreds of millions of pounds from his company's pension funds, as reported by The Guardian and the New York Times. The Maxwell name became synonymous with scandal and financial fraud throughout Britain. Ghislaine relocated to New York shortly after her father's death. According to court documents filed in the Southern District of New York, she met Jeffrey Epstein in the early 1990s. Their relationship, whether romantic, transactional, or both, would define the next 2 decades. Prosecutors at Maxwell's trial described her as Epstein's closest associate and key enabler. Ghislaine Maxwell was born on December 25, 1961, the 9th child of publishing magnate Robert Maxwell. Her father built a media empire that spanned continents. According to The Guardian's obituary from November 1991, Robert Maxwell owned the Daily Mirror, Macmillan Publishers, and the New York Daily News. His wealth was estimated at $2 billion before his death. Robert Maxwell drowned near the Canary Islands on November 5, 1991. His body was found floating beside his yacht, the Lady Ghislaine. The Guardian reported that Spanish pathologists ruled the death accidental drowning, but questions persisted. The Mirror Group's pension fund was missing £400 million, according to the New York Times investigation published December 1991. Maxwell had raided employee pension accounts to prop up his failing companies. British and American intelligence agencies had complicated relationships with Robert Maxwell. Former Mossad officer Ari Ben-Menashe told the Sunday Times in October 1991 that Maxwell served Israeli intelligence for years. The claim was never officially confirmed. What court documents do establish, Robert Maxwell had extensive connections across political and business spheres on multiple continents. Ghislaine Maxwell met Jeffrey Epstein in New York around 1991, shortly after her father's death. According to testimony at her 2021 trial, she lost both her father and her social standing within months. The Maxwell family fortune evaporated amid fraud investigations. She needed money. Epstein had it. Court documents from the Southern District of New York describe how their relationship evolved. Maxwell became Epstein's companion, then his employee, then something prosecutors called his primary co-conspirator. Flight logs obtained by the Miami Herald show Maxwell traveled with Epstein constantly between 1991 and 2002. Her name appears on hundreds of flights. The relationship changed over time. According to trial testimony, Maxwell and Epstein were romantically involved in the early 1990s. By the mid-90s, that had shifted. She remained at the center of his operation, but no longer as his girlfriend. Prosecutors at trial argued she became something more valuable, his recruiter. 4 women testified against Maxwell at her federal trial in Manhattan. The trial began on November 29, 2021, and concluded with guilty verdicts on 5 of 6 counts on December 29, 2021. Jane, testifying under a pseudonym, told the court she was 14 when Maxwell approached her at a summer arts camp in Michigan in 1994. According to her testimony reported by Reuters, Maxwell struck up a friendly conversation. She seemed warm, maternal even. Jane described receiving phone calls from Maxwell, then invitations to Epstein's Palm Beach mansion. The New York Times reported Jane's testimony that Maxwell was sometimes present during sexual abuse by Epstein. She made it seem normal. Jane told the court Kate, another pseudonym, testified she was 17 when Maxwell introduced herself in Paris in 1994. Court transcripts show Kate described Maxwell as glamorous and sophisticated. Maxwell invited her to tea, then to meet her partner. That partner was Epstein. Kate testified that Maxwell gave her a schoolgirl outfit and told her Epstein liked that look. According to CNN's trial coverage, Kate said Maxwell normalized the abuse by treating it casually. Carolyn testified under her first name only. She was 14 when she met Maxwell at Epstein's Palm Beach home in 2001 or 2002. According to Department of Justice press releases about the trial, Carolyn testified that Maxwell touched her breasts and buttocks while discussing her body. Maxwell told her she had a great body for Epstein and his friends, Carolyn testified. Annie Farmer used her real name. She was 16 when Maxwell invited her to Epstein's New Mexico ranch in 1996. According to her testimony reported by The Guardian, Maxwell gave her a massage that included touching her breasts. Farmer described feeling trapped and violated. Maxwell's actions, she testified, were designed to make Epstein's abuse seem acceptable. Maxwell's role extended beyond recruitment. Prosecutors presented evidence that she managed Epstein's household staff, scheduled appointments, and maintained his properties. FBI documents introduced at trial showed Maxwell purchasing a gift for one victim. The prosecution's case painted Maxwell as the architect of the operation. Victims testified that Maxwell normalized the abuse through casual conversation and grooming tactics. One witness described how Maxwell discussed sexual topics with her when she was 14 years old, making improper behavior seem acceptable. Another recalled Maxwell being present in the room during encounters with Epstein. Federal agents arrested Ghislaine Maxwell on July 2, 2020, at her property in Bradford, New Hampshire. The FBI located her at a sprawling estate purchased through a limited liability company to conceal her identity. According to the Department of Justice press release, Maxwell faced 6 criminal charges including sex trafficking of minors and perjury. She had been living in hiding for nearly a year following Epstein's death. The arrest came after extensive investigation by federal prosecutors in the Southern District of New York. Acting U.S. Attorney Audrey Strauss stated that Maxwell played a critical role in helping Epstein to identify, befriend, and groom minor victims for abuse. Maxwell's trial began in late November 2021 in Manhattan Federal Court. 4 women testified against her, describing encounters that occurred when they were teenagers. The trial lasted 3 weeks. Court records show prosecutors presented bank statements, flight logs, and photographs linking Maxwell to Epstein's properties and victims. Defense attorneys argued Maxwell was being scapegoated for Epstein's crimes. On December 29, 2021, the jury convicted Maxwell on 5 of 6 counts. Reuters reported the verdict followed 6 days of deliberation. Judge Allison Nathan presided over the proceedings. Judge Nathan sentenced Ghislaine Maxwell to 20 years in federal prison on June 28, 2022. The New York Times covered a sentencing hearing where Maxwell addressed victims and denied wrongdoing despite her conviction. Several victims delivered impact statements describing lasting trauma. Maxwell currently serves her sentence at FCI Tallahassee, a low-security federal facility in Florida. Her expected release date is in 2037. Her appeal was denied in 2024. A troubling question persists: why only Maxwell? Court documents from Epstein's 2008 plea agreement show immunity granted to 4 potential co-conspirators. Sarah Kellen served as Epstein's scheduler and assistant. FBI reports mention her involvement in contacting victims. Nadia Marcinkova appeared in flight logs and photographs at Epstein properties. Leslie Groff worked as Epstein's executive assistant in New York. Adriana Ross also received immunity under the controversial non-prosecution agreement negotiated by former U.S. Attorney Alexander Acosta. The Miami Herald's investigation revealed these individuals escaped federal prosecution despite substantial evidence of their roles. While Maxwell faced accountability, others, named in court filings and victim testimony, remained free. Department of Justice has not filed charges against Kellen, Marcinkova, Groff, or Ross. This disparity raises questions about equal application of justice. The Maxwell conviction represents partial justice in a sprawling case involving powerful figures and systemic failures. Her 20-year sentence acknowledges the damage inflicted on young women, yet the immunity deals and limited prosecutions leave significant gaps in accountability. Next episode, Victims Speak. Court documents reveal their stories and ongoing legal battles for justice. This was an episode about Ghislaine Maxwell, about the woman who became the key to Epstein's entire system. This channel depends on your support. If this content matters to you, link in the description. Subscribe. See you next time.